The Crow and the Pitcher. There once was a clever crow who was cunning and wise in everything he did. Crow could crack open a nut just by flying high in the air and dropping it onto some hard stones. He didn't even need to use his beak. Crow would never go hungry like the other birds and could always find tasty treats for dinner. Simply by doing a little dance on the soil, Crow could make the worms pop up to see what was going on. The clever bird had a very good brain indeed, and he knew how to use it. Then one day, Crow needed to be more clever than he had ever been before. It was a hot, dry summer day, and Crow had been having a lovely time flying around. By the afternoon, he became very thirsty, and all he wanted was a cool drink of water. Crow flew over hills and fields looking for a pond or a stream to drink from, but he couldn't find one anywhere. Soon Crow was nearly ready to give up. "I don't know where else to look," he said with a very dry throat. "There isn't a drop of water to be found anywhere." Just then Crow saw a cottage far below him, and flying closer, he suddenly spotted a table in the garden. In the middle of the table was a tall glass pitcher of water. By now Crow was even more thirstier, so he swooped down to take a closer look. When Crow flew down to the table and tried to stick his head into the neck of the pitcher, he found that it was much too narrow for him to take a drink from. He almost got his head stuck. Still desperate for a drink, Crow perched on the top of the table and stared at the pitcher. He could see that the pitcher was only half full of water, and it needed to be full all the way to the top so that Crow could easily dip his beak in to take a drink. Crow hopped around the table with his head cocked on one side, thinking hard for a way to reach the water. Then Crow noticed that the path leading up to the cottage was covered with tiny round pebbles. This gave him an idea. Crow hopped off the table where the pitcher stood and picked up one of its pebbles. Flying back to the table, he dropped the pebble into the pitcher. It fell to the bottom with a plop. Then he went back for another pebble and another, plopping them into the water. Each time Crow dropped a pebble into the water, it took up space. The more pebbles that Crow dropped in, the more space they took. Soon the water began to be pushed up to the top until the pitcher was nearly full enough for Crow to take a sip. "It's working!" he squawked, hopping up and down and flapping his wings with excitement. I'll soon be able to drink," Crow said. He worked all evening filling the pitcher with pebbles, and eventually Crow's task was done. "This is the moment I've been waiting for," Crow said, and he put his beak into the neck of the pitcher where he could finally reach the water. He drank and drank and drank until he could drink no more. Finally, he lifted up his head and gave a great caw of relief. Problems can always be solved by looking around and making the best of what you've got, said the wise Crow as he took flight once more. He flew back home fully refreshed, delighted of how clever he had been. Where there's a will, there's a way.